Thank you. So I understand that time is fast spent, but we have a team of panelists that is going to help us do justice to some very important areas of the event for which all of us are gathered here. We are going to take a look at opportunities in Africa, African products, regional value chains, and the Afcfta opportunities. Prior to coming to the top here, outside the lobby there, quite a number of people approached me and said, you have a TV program on Afcfta. Has the Afcfta started? Can we benefit? What opportunities are there? Do we really have to be hyping the Afcfta the way we are doing? And I said to them that this is the first time the entire continent of Africa have come together and said that this is what we have agreed on to do. We want to integrate our market. We want to connect ourselves to be able to move freely, trade freely among ourselves, country to country. They have gone a step further, have a secretariat set up. They've gone beyond that, negotiated on some of the rules. The rules of origin is about 86% negotiated. We are supposed to start trading when they are 90% negotiated. Only 4% left. If you won't start preparing so that as soon as they say we are done and we are trading, you can also walk through the door and start trading. You'll be caught unawares. By the time they say we can all trade, you will have no idea what to do, how to take advantage of opportunities, what opportunities are there in Botswana, as the gentleman talked about, what opportunities are there in South Africa, Namibia, Nigeria. And that is why it is important that if you find yourself in this auditorium today, you've made the right decision, and I'm sure that you would certainly benefit by the time you're leaving here. Shall we put our hands together once again for ourselves? I am informed reliably that I have a few list of my panel who are going to join online. A few of them are also here. I'm going to quickly invite them upstage, and then we will try and commence the discussions, how to take advantage of the opportunities in Africa, deal with the regional value chains as well as the African products, and all opportunities under Afcfta. If you are here with us, let's put our hands together to welcome upstage Guillaume Aditi. We just heard from him not too long ago. Shall I put our hands together and welcome him upstage? Founding partner, Belvedere Africa Partners in Paris. I'm told that we have Ms. Joyce Williams. She's a lawyer. Amo Williams, PLLC and Equity Partners, United States of America. Shall we put our hands together and welcome her as well, upstage. Let's do it better for her as she comes upstage. Michael Bartlett Vanderpoy, Chairman and CEO of MNC Group, is also here to talk to us about the opportunities as he has identified them. Shall we put our hands together and welcome him? Mr. Michael Ejapong, CEO of ERMCRI Group. Shall we put our hands together and welcome him as well? Okay. So likely to be joined online by Nana Boateng, Chief Executive Officer of Cocoa Processing Company. Also, Dr. Melinda Barrow, CEO and President of the 6th Region Caribbean. We'll also be joined on the line by Rahel Nsubuga. The AFTB is going to also join us. and then a few others. I am told that Dr. Joe Atta-Mensah of the UNECA, Principal Policy Advisor, will also be joining us. Professor Godfrey Bumpkin, economist and professor, Finance, University of Ghana, will be joining us on the line as well. Mrs. Ngoni Diop, Director, Economic Community of Africa, Sub-Regional West Africa, will also be joining us. Thank you very much. Let's put our hands together for those who are already gathered here. Techies, shall we have one microphone in addition to what we have out here? The technical team, shall we have a microphone, please? Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen. I'm going to have to request of you to introduce yourself, tell us your organization, what you are creating, what you are building, what you're producing, and what you have created as far as opportunity is concerned. I'll start off with the far left. It's okay for the benefit of those who just walked in or those who may not recall. Okay, use this for now.
I think it was now it's working. Okay, so Guillaume Arditi, I'm the founder of Belvedere Africa Partners. As I just mentioned, Belvedere Africa Partners specializes in debt advisory and financial strategy to support customers for the implementation of their project across the continent. The experience gained in this field and numerous years also in the banking industry made me focus a lot on the financing gap and on its reasons. So the purpose really we're having beyond the strategic advisory and the debt advisory we're doing is to promote alternative investment solutions. So we'll probably have the opportunity to talk about it a bit more, but really to bring new types of investors, new types of financial solutions, whether on the equity side, on the debt side, and with different sectoral approaches. So we're now very much focusing on what is called the debt funds, private debt. And we've been, I would say, probably amongst the first voices in the market to say that the private debt markets should be also developed across the continent, or they are currently in the US or in Europe, because we think it's a perfect tool that would be quite a great additionality to what is currently existing.
Okay, you're looking at the African market and probably starting with the Ghanaian market. What are the specific that you have identified that are immediately you can say that it's an opportunity that you can take advantage of? Assume that we start trading from today.
I think opportunities are everywhere. The difficulty is to have a good execution. And so depending on everyone's specificity to have its skills very well identified. On our side, it's true that we do have quite a footprint in, I would say, sectors like natural resources, commodities, infrastructure, logistics, agro-industry. And what we're seeing now, and the Afcfta is really the exemplification of it, is that we're in a process where the value chain is being ever more integrated in a number of countries, which is going to require financing, and which is the right thing to do to solidify economies and diversify them. So what we're now able to tell also to our investors base is to tell them, like, we are in economies which are ever more strong, and which are very, very far from the usual perception people used to have and tended to associate with natural resources. So at the moment, I think we're really we're in a timing where people start realizing that it's not that progress is being made, it has been made already, and it's just now even increasing.
One of the major challenge which almost everybody is hoping Afcfta will address is to add value to the natural resources, to the very raw materials that we have around. The hope is that after a few while, after Afcfta takes off, we should be able to see some improvement as far as export of raw materials, export of raw natural resources is concerned, to add in value to them. To what extent is your company, for instance, prepared to get to that level where the focus becomes value added?
Yeah, that's exactly where we see the potential. I mean, just yesterday evening, I ate some chocolate, which is Ghanaian chocolate with chocolate bars, extremely good, which you wouldn't have found like 10 years ago. So what we're focusing now is really to try to bring investors to bring the financing on this portion, on the integration of the value chain, and moving up the added value. And because what we see is that the processing part is going to serve external markets, but also regional markets and local markets, because there is also an increasing middle class in a number of countries. So basically what we're seeing now is an evolution from what you just mentioned, raw material export economies, but that's a paradigm that to me is almost dating about 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And now what we're saying is that domestic markets are there, middle class are there, so basically the processing you just mentioned is going to serve domestic markets, regional markets, and outside of Africa markets.
Thank you, Guillaume. So, next, Kingdom Exim.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Michael Bartlett van der Poy. I'm the group chairman of MNC Group Global. We are into real estate, minerals, general commodity, we're into energy, and we are in every continent. The headquarters is in Ghana. We are 14 companies under the group. We are in every continent, and we are in 8 countries at the moment. What we do in real estate, for instance, we have our own projects where we named Fresh Property Joy, where we use brick instead of the normal mortar, the normal block and mortar. We have brick that we use to develop 2-bedroom affordable housing for the middle income people. We do projects with the military. We do projects for institutions. So for instance, we have lands in various locations where we get institutions to just acquire the land, and then we build and spread the payment over a period. We build and spread the payment over a period. We've done a lot of ads when it comes to that. That's under MNC Properties. And under MNC Logistics and Trading, we have 3 gold trading licenses. Now, for the value addition part, we're just building our MNC Gold Refinery, because we realize that we normally take just the gold, raw gold out. We lose a lot. The government loses a lot of taxes when it comes to that. But if we do some refining here, the value goes up, so the taxes are calculated based on the value of the product. So then we're able to get in more. And we're trying to build, alongside the refinery, have a jewelry manufacturing school where we want to teach the youth, bring them on board, so that why would somebody travel to Dubai to go and buy jewelry when the gold is produced from here? Dubai doesn't produce any gold. The gold is produced from here. If we have the right partnerships to get people here to train our local artisans and the youth, we want to get the best jewelry here in Ghana for the value addition.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. So you take your break first, for instance, if there is someone in the audience from Namibia or a fellow from Botswana, and he's hoping to connect with you, to what extent are you preparing to be able to take advantage of the other African countries, African markets, probably the neighboring ones, the West African ones, and then beyond that to the Eastern African and Southern?
Anyway, we're already connected, right?
Good.
So MNC is already in Cameroon. We are already in South Africa, we are in Mali, and we are in Sierra Leone.
Beautiful.
In fact, we do different things in different countries. For instance, in Cameroon, we do farm, where we have over 200 acres of cassava farm, and we supply to breweries in South Africa. We go to Sierra Leone, they're also into minerals. So with our experience...
Let me get that side correct on the cassava bit. So you have a cassava farm in Cameroon,
Yeah.
producing raw cassava for a South African market?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, we get a connect from the AIM. Normally, we used to do it in Dubai, annual investors meeting. We've been going for the last decade. Just COVID now, we have to do more of virtual. So when you go, you connect, not only for Ghana, because you need to woo investors. And my background is finance. So I actually like to advise on various countries. So I find out what the country has and what they need. So you can be here and be consulting for somebody in Europe. Right? So having that experience with minerals trading and export, going to the market, the Sierra Leone market, where I wanted to learn more of diamonds, because the diamonds we have here are industrial diamonds. They're just small.
Yeah.
You know, Guinea, Sierra Leone, some Liberia, they have more, they're very established with diamonds and minerals. But we have a more, our legal framework and our structures are more unique and better than theirs. So you go there with your experience from Ghana and experience across various markets in the world. For instance, we've been in Hong Kong, we've been in China for like 6 years, we've been in various different countries. We just recently set up in the US, and the same, the MNC brand. Okay, so going there with the experience, you're able to liaise with the locals, learn what they have, and then you add value to it to be able to push. So sometimes clients contact MNC in Ghana to go and make exports for products from Sierra Leone or from Mali. You understand? So we're already connecting.
Okay.
Just across, but we recently set up in Nigeria too, which is a very good market.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. So I would come back to you again in the second round for the areas where you reckon the Afcfta rules and regulations will be able to facilitate what you're already doing. If we can take the next and...
Good afternoon. My name
afternoon.
is Michael Ogranson Ejapong, and I'm the founding partner and CEO of MCRE Group right here in Ghana. What we do as the MCRE Group is basically you could put it as a privatized version of the GIPC, for instance. We are mainly focused on startups and opportunities in Africa wide. So it's not just for Ghana, but all over Africa. So we focus on two main things. Number one, which is entrepreneurs. So we're always...
Sorry, which is...
Entrepreneurs.
Good.
Right. So we're always looking for people who have great initiatives, great businesses, great opportunities that they want to invest in. And what we do is we come in and do two main things. One, with the management of these companies, and two, with the finances. So we have realized that one of the main problems with startups and with businesses thriving in this new and vibrant market, Africa, is with management. So that's the reason why we set up the MCRE Group as a company, to come in and help with these businesses, to help them take off and build themselves where they want to be. So like with what they do when it comes to finances, we do the same thing. We bring in financial support, we bring in managerial support as well. Then to the second thing that the MCRE Group does is to liaise with investors. So you have a lot of investors who have heard that Africa is a great business opportunity, but they are still wary. Why? Because they don't know where to start from or how to break ground in this region. So we come in to do what most might find as very rare, and we give them some form of guarantee to say that their investments are in good hands with us, because we're partnering with, number one, credible international legal firms as well as credible international accounting firms to give them the kind of security that every investor wants for his investment. So that's basically what the AMCRE group does.
Good, Michael, and that's awesome. I'm sure that quite a number of the young and entrepreneurs who are in the room would be excited about what you do. And since the emergence of this whole dream of Afcfta and even the implementation, a lot of young folks are being encouraged to get into entrepreneurship. Reference was made to the Youth Connect program that was held just about 3-4 days ago. A lot of young people encouraged to get into entrepreneurship. Almost everybody here, if they get the opportunity, they would get into that. So I can assure you that you will be overwhelmed with a lot of application. With this whole enthusiasm being blown everywhere, how are you able to select the entrepreneurs that you want to help? How can they build themselves to meet your standard for support?
So personally, one thing that I always look out for, and this is because I'll start by talking about an article that I read just this past Saturday on an exclusive interview granted by the Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs, who started her tour, her official tour in Ghana, and she cited examples and reasons why she started with Ghana. And I'm sure that it's not going to be a surprise to most of us in this room when someone says that Ghana has been positioned as a leader on the continent. But you see, we have this leadership tag on Ghana all the time, which I strongly do believe in. However, I don't think that we can call ourselves leaders if we just do good for ourselves. And I think that we already have the blueprint. We've had it for a while, and I'm not talking just about Ghana. I'm talking about Ghanaians and people all over Africa from different parts of Africa. We have the blueprint on what needs to be done, and an initiative like the Afcfta is such a great one in this direction. However, to answer your question, I think that the number one thing that we lack, or the number one thing that we need to see all the time happen, or we need to see in people, in individuals, and in companies, is desire. Desire. You see, with enough desire, with just as much of it as is needed, the shared desire, the kind of desire that keeps me or you from going 24 hours without being uncomfortable. The kind of desire that makes you feel like you've spent 8 whole hours in a day and you have not worked consciously toward a certain goal. And that goal in this respect would be to see Africa move from the developing stage to a developed world. This is one of the things that I personally look out for. For people who are passionate about what they're doing, people who want to see this happen, and not just for it to be a dream, and not for it to just be something that we say we want a developed Africa, but we don't actually work towards it. This is one of the key things that I always look out for. I think that with that in place, we could always get knowledge. We could always go seek knowledge. We could always, in this day and age when you can pick up your phone and say, hey Siri, what's this and what's that? We can always find out information. We can always get the knowledge. But if we're not driven enough, then it would never come to fruition. So just to answer your question, that's one of the key things that I always look out for.
Okay. So how can they get to you, for instance? How can an entrepreneur in there, for instance, be confident enough and say that I would look different if I approach Michael, and I will be accepted with whatever I'm putting out there? Now, 27% of African women, of Africans, we are told, involved in entrepreneurship, which is higher than the 13% in Southern America, for instance. And like I say, a lot of times we are told that the approach is quite mediocre. That is why there's no financing. how can they go beyond the mediocrity to assess your finance?
Okay. Thank you for the question. So like I said, I'm always looking out for people who are driven and people
By
who
the
have
desire.
that much desire. Even if they had mediocrity, most of the time it's because of, if I must be candid, where they're from and the upbringing and things that have been instilled in us right from the get-go. But if they did have the desire to want to move it far, we don't even wait for them to approach us or for them to come to us. We go to them. We look for them. We hunt them down. And if we find these people, we're always able to come to them and say, listen, you have such a great initiative. You have such a great product. And we think that it can be bigger than what you're looking at. So for instance, we're working in real estate, and we have come up with, we just rolled out a product for affordable housing, like he spoke about. And this product, I see personally how people are receptive to it, the feedback that we get from clients and people looking to own their homes. And we have tagged it Inspire Freedom. Why Inspire Freedom? Because we're inspiring people and inspiring people to have the freedom to own a home. You look at affordable housing, or what is tagged as affordable housing, and not really. To me, it's not really affordable. And to a lot of people out there, it's not really affordable. We're talking about 2-bedroom homes, 3-bedroom homes, 4-bedroom homes that are cutting the market price and sometimes two-thirds of it off. And we also have a payment plan, for instance. So to answer your question, I'm saying this, I'm giving this example, citing this example, because whether their plans are mediocre or not, as long as we find people who want to move and are desirous of this and are working fervently to make this happen, we're always able to come to the table and show them what can be done with what they have.
Good.
They don't necessarily have to have that big of a mindset from the beginning. Someone brings one thing to the table, another brings another, and I think that's what partnerships are all about. And
Good.
we're looking to partner with anyone and everyone all over
Good.
the country and the continent.
Very good
and
to hear.
beyond.
Thank you, Michael. So let me just announce that we have a very active online audience as well. And we're going to be joined online by Beatrice Makoka, as well as Dr. Joseph Atamensa, who is a principal policy advisor with the United Nations Economic Community for Africa, UNECA. They are all online at the moment, and they'll be joining us the panel. But the audience is quite active online, so if you're online, you can be sending, if you have anything to ask. The panel will be pleased to also take those questions along it. So, Ms. Joyce, if you can also share with us where you're coming from and what you're into.
All right, thank you, and welcome all of you for joining us. I'm Joyce Williams, and I am the founder of a law firm, Amo Williams PLLC in Washington, D.C. Our focus is on project finance, where we work with investors and project owners, just structuring and giving due diligence to help them in entering new markets. We also offer international trade services to governments on issues like regional integrations, where they can domesticate and adapt their domestic laws to meet the protocols and principles of new legislation, as in the case of the Afcfta. So we are looking forward to working with several of the governments on the continent. And then we also offer business immigration services. So for instance, like our friend here who just established in the US, we look at visa categories that will be helpful for them. We look at opportunity zones in the US and other US government programs that help foreign entrants into the US markets, so that they set up in the right state, location, taking advantages of the taxes and other supports. And then I do also co-own a private equity firm, Hazina Equity Partners, where we are focusing on small, medium enterprises, specifically in the tech, healthcare industries. So we are currently in the process of starting our fundraising. Our really key focus is on women and then also creating opportunities for really the medium to smaller enterprises to be able to access finance, to be able to get advisory services to help them to really register the proper business that they need, as well as put in place management and other relevant business substances so that it's easy for them to be presentable to somebody like Guillaume and other financing entities. And then the last industry I'm involved in is sports, mainly soccer. I do have an agency, iSoccer, in the US, and focusing on player development with some partners in Europe and then the US as well.
Good. So if we have some players who want to, for instance, be signed on in Senegal, Ghanaian players who want to sign on to Senegal, you are in the position to assist.
Certainly.
Okay. Now, somebody who wants to know that if I am an MSME, for instance, all my focus is to be able to trade from Ghana to Namibia. Do I need some legal understanding? Is there something that I need to know about legislations before I can do this in order to take advantage of cross-border trading, for instance?
Certainly, anytime that you are entering into any markets, for instance, I'm licensed in Arizona and we can operate globally, but we use a lot of local counsel because the danger is not understanding the markets your clients are entering into and then falling into pitfalls. So if a Ghanaian wants to enter into Namibia, it's always ideal that you get in contact with the local counsel in Namibia. But as we are looking at Afcfta, the goal is to have a much more uniform approach across the borders so that going from Ghana to Namibia would not be so hectic. At least the establishment of the company, understanding what the rules are in taxation, in registration, in IP laws, those things can be uniform and it creates an easy access and entrance to new markets.
Many people haven't been used to this. We are used to the very informal way of trading. So if I'm a palm oil seller on a bulk purchase level that I take from here to Togo, I use the Aplao, and I've been used to very informal way of sending those there. Today there's going to be Afcfta. A lot of people are going to move some of those products that I probably was already dealing in. Why do you think all of a sudden I should be aware of some of these legal or legislative instruments that bind movement, even though we are told that movement and trading are supposed to be free across borders?
Well, I mean, I think that's using the word free is a bit of an oxymoron because it's free, but it's not really free. But just understanding that going from the informal sector, and the informal sector has supported our economies, but really to create generational, multi-generational wealth, to scale up company, you cannot continue in the informal sector. There are several advantages of being registered. You know, for instance, if you ask the palm wine seller, how much do you make in a month? What's the quantity? What's your price point? Those analyses. They might be able to give you some rough estimates, but having the right numbers and then putting that before, for instance, an insurance company, they can provide you an insurance for times that maybe you don't have products at that capacity, or on your way to a flower, something happens and there's an accident, your goods have fallen off. armed robbers, anything can happen, uncertainties in trade. So those times you can fall back on, for instance, getting an insurance company to insure against your product when you're doing cross-border business. I think that one of the key things when it comes to AFTA is for us not to be so esoteric and high level, but really using the concept of street law to really getting our SMEs from the informal sector to understand, because it can become a language that we are speaking, that there is AFTA, and it could be that it's for people in Accra or Abuja, the capitals, but in the villages, we need to be able to bring it down for those people in our villages, those on the streets, to understand. I mean, big concepts like mergers and acquisition in laws, for instance, can be applied to a street seller. If you're selling roasted granuts and I'm selling roasted plantains, we can come together and then sell together. That's mergers and acquisition in the nutshell. It doesn't need to be technical. So I think that the key to making sure that AFTA succeed and for our informal sectors to understand is really being able to bring it down to the level where that it can support their education, it can support the language, and it can support their understanding, so that they don't feel that you are asking them to completely shift and then incur additional costs.
Now, do you see, and this will be the last one before we all take a generic question, and then we can invite. Do you see that this legislation is being brought down to the use of the regular people who are going to be the beneficiaries of this Afcfta? So we hear that just about 14% of the trade we do around here are formal, and those are the ones that are recorded. The rest are all informal. So you get to all the borders from Paga going, you see a lot of onions going into Ouagadougou. If you get down to Aflao here, you see a lot of maize crossing to the other side. Same with the Lubo. How are we breaking some of these legal things to make it normal for ordinary people to understand? And happy you're coming from the US side, that a lot of people would have to take goods from one state in the States, for instance, to, let's say, San Diego, to somewhere. And it comes natural. As an ordinary person who does normal trade, but they are supposed to know A and B and C are supposed to be the normal things that I have to go through. How do we make the ordinary folks who are going to use this AFTA understandable? And how can your outfit play a role? The legal field and where you're coming from, how can you play a role to bring everything down for the regular folk?
So in terms of bringing everything down, the AFCTA is a process, right? You start from the high-level discussions, deliberations. At some point, we need to shift from that and then focus on the countries. And then with the countries, you even go down to the regional levels, the municipality levels, and then all the way to the local government levels. So I think that, first of all, we need to understand that it's a process. So the AFCTA implementation is not going to happen overnight. So it's a lot of work that needs to go into it at all different stages. So that's first what we need to understand. And I think that the conversation should be that people are not thinking something has come that is going to change my life overnight, given that it is a process. But I think that I will encourage lawyers also on the continent to begin to really take a different approach of the way that we practice law. I think in the US, for instance, we are undergoing different changes in the way that we practice law. We used to practice based on billable hours, where you bill people. A lot of clients don't want that. There is a hybrid of flat fee and different ways so that people can really afford legal services. And so I think that the lawyers in Ghana, the rest of the African continent, needs to also look at clientele not only as the multinationals and the bigger companies, but if you can also provide the services to the local, and sometimes it starts with really doing legal clinics and some pro bono work to really help the people to understand. But even in able to provide that, we need to be able to understand the AFCTA ourselves as legal practitioners. We need to understand the community's needs, and then we take those two things together and then be willing to go local. It's not always glamorous, but it's something that you have to do. And I mean, for my part, even living in the United States, I'm from Asankragwa in the Western region. So I stay very connected to my community. We are talking about ADR in Asankragwa. We are talking about women development and empowerment in Asankragwa. We are talking about access to healthcare and those things. So I stay very connected to my community. We have technology and we need to take advantage of those in terms of using WhatsApp, using Zooms to educate people to really get down into the communities. So I think that if we give it time, and I think it was Michael who mentioned that the desire, right? The desire is there. There's a lot of political willness that needs to go into really seeing the after work. Government needs to be able to dedicate resources. Non-profits, other stakeholders. We had the German ambassador here, GIZ, who is sponsoring this program. So all those partners, we really need to bring them together and channel the focus on what we want to see. And in doing so, I think that we can mobilize the resources that we need. And in the next 5-10 years, we'll be talking a different language and be seeing the realization of the AFCTA for the continent.
Good. And do you see that young lawyers, if there are young lawyers among, are beginning to see some of these opportunities that you're highlighting? Because today, if I am bringing something from Waga to Ghana through Paga border and I get there and I say that these tomatoes I'm taking to Ghana, I deserve zero duty on it. And then the customs officer said, no, you have to pay duty on it. I said, no, I have to go free, zero duty. How do I get, who do I talk to? How do I get access to intervention, legal advice and all of that? Do you see young lawyers preparing their minds that there are going to be a lot of some of these basic minor trade litigations that they can't take advantage of? Do you see that opportunity? And what can you say to young lawyers on that?
Oh, I think that it's, yes, you've rightfully said it. The opportunities are there, and I really do hope. I mean, I've had the chance to speak to some lawyers, and I have some lawyer friends here in Ghana, and we have these conversations all the time, and I really do hope that lawyers are looking outside of maybe the areas that they are used to practicing, especially new and upcoming lawyers, and looking at these opportunities as practice areas that they can develop. But one of the things also with Afcfta that we need to be looking at is the consistency, so that it is known that if you're taking tomatoes from Ghana to, let's say, Ouagadougou, if it's this quantity, if it's for this, then there's this customs duties on it. And using technology really solves a lot of those problems. So if there are duties you paid already in your home country, and then when you get to the border, then there is no reason for you to engage with the customs officer as to how much you need to pay. So taking out some of those also human elements and using technology will help us to facilitate some of these things faster and better, so that we achieve consistency and ease of the cross-border trading that we wish for.
Good. So I'm going to go online and get some of our online panelists as well. Do we have Dr. Joe Atamensa? Do we have Dr. Joseph Atamensa? The techies, and Madame Beatrice Makoka. Do we have them? Okay. Let me start with Dr. Joseph Atamensa. Pleasure to have you online, Doctor, from UNECA. From the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa perspective, what opportunities do you think we have been able to create so far since 1st January of implementation of the Afcfta? that we have been able to create for the continent as far as trading is concerned.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much, moderator, Mr. Ajiman, and let me be on record to congratulate the organizers of this meeting, Mr. Yawafo and Emmanuel Benson, and all those who have worked very hard to put this conference together. Kudos to all of you. Regards to your question of what opportunities have been made available since the implementation of the CFTA from January 1st, I think the good thing is that conferences like such as this have brought investors together to be able to explore what is available. What the Secretariat have done is to look into to bring countries together to see what the tariff lines which have to be removed, because the free trade area requires that trade takes place without inhibition, and what makes it free is the question of removing tariffs so that goods can flow between countries without accumulating tariffs. So that part it's going on. I think it's too early to say that because of this trade, a company has been able to come here or there. But I think what this has done to us is, we have to continue to work hard to create that enabling environment which would make it more attractive. And what are some of these enabling environments that we'd have to create in Africa? And number one is there are something we call the non-tariff barriers. And the non-tariff barriers is basically looking at some of the issues of infrastructure, which inhibits the movement of goods. We need to find a way of doing that to solve it, so that we have first-class infrastructure that would move goods from the ports to the hinterlands, particularly to countries that don't have access to the seas, which are what we call the landlocked countries. So we've got to support them and give them that facility. Number two, we have to also look into the point of, again, on this question of non-tariff barriers, what we call the phytosanitary conditions, and to try and do whatever we can to remove those barriers, have the laboratories which would be able to test and give green light for goods to move from one country to the other. So we need first-class laboratories for that. The other opportunities that this also present to us is for us to take a look, and I'm glad that Ms. Williams was talking about mergers and acquisition and all that, and the other panelists have focused on it, and I salute them for what they are doing. The one in Michael, who is in real estate, and for what he's done and what he's doing in terms of adding value to the natural resources. I mean, kudos to all the panelists who've spoken before me for what they are doing, which is more practical in that sense. But one thing I wanted to point out, which comes in, and is the opportunity that the free trade area represents is investments. What kind of investments, and what can we do to attract investments? And that would require us to, again, look at FDIs. I mean, Africa is in a place where we don't need handouts. What we do need is good direct foreign investments, which would help us to not sell our raw materials outside, but to be able to add value to the raw materials that we are producing, like what Michael said about adding value to the gold, since we all know that Ghana has a lot of gold, and instead of selling the raw form of gold, it would be good to convert them into necklaces, earrings, and whatever gold has value for. So that needs to be encouraged, and we need to do that in that sense. The most last point. I know I'm
you're fine. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. So the last point I want to make is, I think last week there was a Youth Connect in Africa, and most people were saying the youth are the future. I have always argued that the youth are not the future. The youth are now. They are leaders now. And all these people I see on the podium who are younger, I'm sure way younger than me, are making a difference. And so we need to create the environment where we will have to begin to accept that the youth have a lot to offer. And therefore we should create an environment that will make them to harness their entrepreneurial spirits. And all that would require clear discussion between the universities and governments to see how entrepreneurship will be created, so that the youth are not there saying, oh, we're waiting for the government to give us a job. These jobs are difficult to find now, but if we have the opportunity and we're able to take the risks, which the youth are doing in terms of IT and all that, let's create that enabling environment to allow them to use technology in a way that they would build the industries that will be the backbone of the implementation of the CFTA, because the CFTA in itself is meaningless unless you have products that you have to sell. And so therefore, let's encourage our youth, so-called youth, who are leaders of today, not tomorrow, leaders of today, to be able to channel the energy to create the industries that we need.
Good. Dr. Tamesan, I'm going to ask you about the opportunities that UNECA itself is assisting to create in a short while. But before then, the last time you and I had a public conversation on Afcfta was before the implementation proper. After the implementation, today in this auditorium, there's a young man from Botswana, 34 years. He's in Ghana to look for a partner to do business with. There are quite a number of folks who are not from Ghana. They are in Ghana today looking for partnership. You talked about the Youth Connect. There were folks there who are in Ghana to look for partnerships. And I've sat in conferences. A lot of folks from different places on the continent of Africa have now gotten the zeal, enthusiasm, desire to look for partnership amongst ourselves. Would you say this is one of the major opportunities, the mere fact of Afcfta taking off in Africa has brought to us as Africans? We are now connecting and thinking towards that angle a lot more than we used to.
Yeah, I agree with you, and kudos to the guy, the young man from Botswana, who is coming to Ghana to look for partnerships. Yeah, I think so. I mean, this brings us partners all over the country. I mean, Botswana, for instance, Michael may want to visit there. They are very good in terms of when it comes to diamonds and what they've done with De Beers, you know, and now they want to go into beneficiation, which is basically to add value to the diamond. And I think it's great to have that. I mean, if you go to Malawi, they have macadamia nuts. You have Ghana, which has chocolates, and perhaps maybe an arrangement could be reached between those chocolate factories and maybe someone in Malawi to see whether you can produce a chocolate which has macadamia nuts in. So it presents an opportunity to that, and I hope, you know, one thing that we need to tackle, which is a great problem for most African countries, is the issue of governance, economic governance, and that relates to corruption. So I do know we have to also collectively address the issue of corruption, so that when anyone is coming into a country, you do not want to have a situation where you have to bribe your way through to get whatever paper you need. And that we have to work on. We all have to work on to eliminate that. And so we have to, and that will be the part which we call ease of doing business. And you have to remove those barriers that impedes. You have to be able to come in today if you want to set up a business. You know, I know that Ghana has done an incredible job in terms of removing barriers and inhibitions to setting up a business. So therefore, people are able to set up businesses quickly. What you've done through this conference and these engagements must continue, and therefore you need to bring in the private sector to say, look, private sector should not wait for government or to wait for you, the organizers, Mr. Affle and others to say, look, we are organizing and we want to school you on what is going on in the SCFTA. This CFTA is for the business community, and therefore the business community should take the lead in terms of ensuring or bringing partners together and create the environment. And that's why I applaud the Ghana Investment Promotion Corporation, or Center, Ghana Investment Promotion Center, for continuously organizing meetings that brings in partners and showcase what is available in Ghana. And that is good. And therefore, we need to also bring in others. So the CFTA is a conduit, it's a facility that would organize and will be, if harnessed properly, will be able to bring in the entrepreneurs that we need. But before that, I've always argued, I've always suggested this before in Ghana, that Ghana must think of, having to create the kind of investment hub, financial center. And I've said it before, and we have to explore. Can we create an investment, a financial center where banks will be available, the insurance companies will be available, the equity hedge funds will be available, the angel funds will be available, what people need to support incubation and all that. So we have to be holistic and take advantage of what is available and not always look at it from the point of view that the government has to provide. And I think that this presents a tremendous opportunity for the business community to look into creating these facilities to be able to support the youth who are leaders when it comes to entrepreneurship, to support them to drive development beyond aid, as the president of Ghana would like to put it.
Thank you, Dr. Arthur-Mensah. We're going to go to our other online panelists, and then we will come back to the auditorium. So, Madam Beatrice Maka, if we have her, do we have her on the line? Makoka. Beatrice is supposed to join us online, do we? Okay. We don't. So we will find her along the line and definitely take her perspective, because it would be important to take that perspective, particularly from where she's coming. But let me get back to my auditorium and comments from the other side again. We talk about opportunities all the time. We hear the opportunities Afcfta has to create. What we forget sometimes is that sometimes along the opportunities there are quite a number of challenges that you need to deal with before you can take advantage of the opportunities. From your opinion, what are the imminent challenges that you see, and how do you think those can be surmounted to take advantage of the real opportunities around? And who should come in, who should intervene to deal with those challenges for us to be able to harness the opportunities along?
Thank you for the question, because this is a very important point we're confronted to. So I'll speak really from a perspective from what we're doing with international investors, right?
Yeah.
The main difficulty I'm facing, and now it's changing, but I think there are a number of international investors who are not present in the continent and who've been hesitant to do their first steps, right? And I think we really need to bring this new cash in the financial system. Now, the real issue we had, and what we were a bit kind of fighting against, was that there is a binary vision of risk in Africa, which is basically on one side you have development finance, aid, and on the other side you have high risk, high return. What we've been telling the market for about 3 more years now is like there is granularity as well within markets in Africa. So it's absolutely possible, and we tend to prove it now, that to show that there are medium risk, medium returns, and that you don't always have to think as, okay, I'm going to Africa, so I'm seeking double-digit returns. And we've been pushing. We're saying, well, you can have single-digit returns, very decent transactions, very secure as well, and that will provide you a very good alternative to what you get in your current markets. So I think this is this is something really on which it's important to kind of to educate the market, the international investors. They're coming to it progressively, but as I was saying before, I think there is a lot of work which is being done, but to push them to see that the perception they have is still not what the reality is actually is. And for that, probably one of also of the best, I think, teams that can be put together is at the moment we're talking to investors on both sides of the Mediterranean. And what we think is that is having Pan-African investors teaming with investors outside also of Africa that will help, really go to the next level. And that's also in, I think, not a very long time, will also open up the doors of European markets or American markets for African investors who will want to deploy also outside of the continent.
How do you think we can step up this awareness creation to sort of get people in tune with what the challenges are, but how it can be dealt with in order to invest?
Very practically, for instance, I mean, we on our side, what we've been doing is that there is a bit of the theoretical part, which is when we have a chance to speak at a conference, we just give perception. We show that people have to focus on trends rather than on data. I mean, we've been reaching a kind of evolution in the last years, and especially with the development of digital, it has it's good, but sometimes it has also its cons. It's like people are focusing on short term. All right, and what we're saying is like you have to look at long term, you have to look at trends. So when you look at what is happening in Africa, you don't have to look at what happened like last week and the news coverage, which is focusing on the coup in Guinea like 3 weeks ago. Yeah. You have to focus on what is happening in Ghana for 30 years. You have to focus on what is happening in Nigeria for 20 years. You have to focus on trends, and then you will see that the trends have been very positive for like at least 20 years. It's been fluctuating, but positive, as everywhere it fluctuates. Yeah. But the trend is upwards. And then I would say practically in business part, what we've been doing is we've been talking to a number of investors in Africa, a number of investors in Europe, and we put them around the table and we try to push that. So let's work together. Let's not only have like one DFI-backed fund or like one only private sector guys, but let's have public, private, and institutional investors from both sides of the Med.
Okay. So beyond what you're doing from your business perspective, what can the various institutions within Africa, for instance, be able to do to scale up this kind of orientation? If we don't get opportunity like this in a conference room like this to let this out, what do we do? What should be done from agency's perspective?
Yeah, well, typically, that works. I mean, usually for investors who didn't work in Africa, what comes when you look at samples as at the top of the list of what worries you to do your first step comes political risk, right? So, but the political risk, when you have a player like a Pan-African DFI, for instance, who's on board, then it's very much reassuring for an international investor because he knows that it's a DFI and it's a Pan-African DFI, so the DFI knows the ground, but that can also doesn't have to be limited to a DFI. It can be, I don't know, an African insurance company. It can be an African pension fund. We're talking to pension funds in a number of countries, and the fact that an international investor is going to see that just next to him you have a major player who is from Ghana, from South Africa, from Nigeria, is going to be very much reassured because there will be an alignment of interest in their own investments, and there's one who knows the ground, and there's a good partnership in terms of firepower.
Okay, good. Michael. Okay, any challenges that you have identified in the course of business that in order to be able to invest further, you think that should be dealt with so that you can properly have access to the opportunities available? Okay. What I said from the beginning was that you see, when we're talking about the Afcfta, almost everybody is throwing out there. There are opportunities, go for it. There are opportunities. But if there is an opportunity there, before sometimes you get to that opportunity, There are probably some challenges around there that you need to surmount before you get there. My thing is, what are some of the challenges in your area of operations you think we can be able to handle and you can let out there for it to be tackled so that the opportunities can easily be assessed by you and other investors who want to take advantage of where you operate?
All right, so I'll tackle this question in two parts. First, I'll go with the government part. You know, if you're doing anything, you're doing it in the dark. Nobody knows what you're doing. So as a country, if you want to market, let's say, I'll use Ghana, for instance, and by extension goes to Africa. If you want to market what we have here, we need to start putting policies, start putting ease of business, changing our way of doing things. I'll give you an example. For instance, before I set up MNC in South Africa, I traveled somewhere in India, and then I said I'm from Ghana. They've never heard of Ghana.
I see.
Yeah.
They've never heard of
They've
Ghana.
never heard of Ghana. Because of the
You're
World
talking about
Cup.
one or two persons who had not heard about Ghana, or there's...
No, I'll tell you. And if you go to places, I'll give you an example. I'm giving practical example.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just sending a message to the government and to
Which is
everybody.
good. That's the reason
Yeah.
why we're here. It's important
So
they get to know.
they only know of South Africa because of the World Cup that was played in South Africa. Okay? So they assume every African is South African.
I see.
And these are
Very
practical.
practical.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You go somewhere, you know, Ghana, we pride ourselves as the West Africa, the gateway to investment. And
Nobody
yet-
knows that.
Yeah, exactly. The point is, we need to market Ghana. We have a lot of things. We have minerals. We have affordable lands for agriculture. We have opportunities in real estate because we have a huge real estate deficit. But what are we doing? We talk more and we act less. When you say ease of doing business, you have a one-stop shop. I've always said this thing. When you go to Abidjan, there's a place called CPC.
Yeah.
You register everything at CPC, one-stop shop. That is what we call ease of doing business. Here you come to Ghana, you go to GIPC, they give you all the brochures, all the lectures. Now from GIPC, you cannot register a company in GIPC.
Yeah.
As a foreigner, you've come in, you don't know anything. They'll take you to Registrar General, where you go through a rigorous process because our address system, you cannot identify anything. Now, I'm an investor coming to a country. I need to have a one-stop shop for data collection. That is what gives investor confidence. Our institutions are now, like for instance, Minerals Commission, for instance, where I do a lot of business with, they are now getting the IT system where we go in paperless. For me, it's very good. I've been in the UAE for 10 years, and I can tell you I've watched the UAE develop over, and it's paperless. When you go, everything is online. Registration of company is online. You don't even need to speak to anybody to say, oh, can you speed it up? That's where corruption comes in. You meet somebody, you say, oh, can you speed it up? They say, okay, take this envelope. You don't meet anybody to ask for any envelope. Address system is working. Biodata, everything. You know that you have somebody, somebody calls you and you go and check the number. It's registered to 3 or 4 different names. When any investor is coming in, we pride ourselves with political stability. Yes, it's very key, but it's an outgrown thing that we're using.
We should find something.
We should find something else. Abidjan had a coup. We dropped a bit because of their unstable listen. Now they are above us. And that's the reality.
Yeah.
They are above us. So for me, with this after...
You mean in terms of production of some particular crops and all of that?
In terms
Or you're
of
talking
attracting FDIs.
Investment.
Exactly. You see, in Ghana, we talk too much, we don't act. That is the problem. We talk, we don't act. We should have practical ways of working. You were asking a legal friend here about bringing tomatoes from maybe Ouagadougou. See, We sit here and have conferences, talk of Afcfta, all these things. But practically, it doesn't even work. Just ECOWAS. Togo has free port. Try bringing something from Togo to Ghana. And you see the taxes they'll slap you with. Even importing. Get into any business. You're talking about the youth. They say the youth, everything is the youth. What incentives has the government done for the youth? We have free education. What does it give you? It means a lot more graduates are coming in every year. Yet government cannot employ. And we are not empowering the private sector to be able to employ more people to ease the stress on government. Those in private sector, you can ask anybody doing business. It's not easy being an entrepreneur. The fact is, you are overtaxed because you register your company by yourself. You go to GRA and say, oh, I want to register with you to be able to pay my taxes. The next moment, they slap you with a TCC of provisional tax assessment when you haven't even started work. Where's the ease? You haven't started work. Where's the ease?
Correct.
You understand? Now, somebody says, how come foreigners come in and they're able to make it? The truth of the matter is, we don't help ourselves. Our policies do not grow Ghanaian businesses. And it's about time we remove this political umbrella and give opportunities to the youth, those who want to go into entrepreneurship, put them together. For instance, you have people who've done accounting and they are sitting home. Accounting is something practical. So what do? You put them together and give them some incentives. Let them go around giving basic payroll tips to those people who are having shops at Mokola and all those things. You know that traders are the wealthiest in the world. And everything trading gives you a lot of money. The Mokola woman doesn't need any accountant there. But if you add that value, she would tend to realize that, oh, so even if I have this, maybe when I'm bringing something out, I can get an insurance to give me this. It adds value. Now, you don't want to go into agriculture. But agriculture is one of the wealthiest areas that if you develop properly, we're able to do. So it's about time, if we are going to have this Afcfta to work. I was telling Louis some time ago that this is not the first time I'm speaking on Afcfta. I've said that maybe it's not our generation, maybe in the next 2 generations. Because I only see our leaders having tea time, coffee time, eat a lot, talk, and there's nothing. And that is the fact. Let's get policies that will make anybody. Why would I go to work for somebody when I can create something and also add value? Why should I wait for government to employ? I can set up, give me the condition, let me employ other people and be able to pay them. It eases your burden. You understand? Good. So I think the challenge is more of lip service.
Thank you, Michael. I think that the applause coming from the audience says it all, that you've hammered on most of the salient issues. You mentioned CBC in Abidjan, which is an equivalent of what we have here, the Ghana Shippers Authority, which is the centralized point where you can do all of your registrations and all of that, which is way opposite to what we have in Ghana. Here, you have to go to the FDA, go to GSA, go to all of that. Very key. And synergizing the institutions in making sure that ease of doing business flows as fast as possible is what everybody is praying that they can do. Very good challenge. No support to the youth, cumbersome procedures, policies don't work for the Ghanaian businesses. These are challenges that you think. The one that you talked about after so far is coffee everywhere. As a matter of fact, those of us seated here, people are also criticizing us outside, though, that you are drinking coffee.
Yeah, we need this.
The reason I refer to that is that, again, I always try to see some opportunities around even the coffee drinking. The coffee drinking is bringing all of us here together. And the coffee bringing is letting somebody hear of these challenges that you are talking about. The coffee drinking is also going to prompt some people to get to Ouagadougou, the Paga border, and talk to the tomato sellers. The coffee drinking sometimes push the likes of lawyers to say, let me take my legal understanding down to the market woman who takes gele from Lagos to Accra all the time. Because some legal implications are involved in what they do, though they are ignorant of it. And it is up to the likes of lawyers and what they do to break those down. The lawyers who have always been complaining, and as you said, a lot of people getting educated, legal fields, the lawyers are graduating almost every year and wondering which law firm to go to, forgetting that AFTA is here and the Mokala woman will need some understanding to bring gele from Lagos to Accra. And that is why this is important.
Good. Can I clear the air on the... Let you understand.
No, I agree.
No, wait,
I like it.
To
it's too much.
No, I want to make it something clear. You know, anytime we have an opportunity to meet like-minded people for investment, listen, like, we have to connect.
Yeah, good.
That's the essence.
Yeah.
Now, beyond this, what next?
Yeah.
I'm sure you've sat with you've been to thousands of conferences. Now, ask yourself, beyond the network that giving the people the opportunity to even hear, what next?
Some go to sleep.
Perfect. So when you have the government, the next AFTA or the next conference, they should come and tell us, oh, based on this conference, we came up with this and we've implemented A, so we are about 10, 20% being done. Let's be practical.
Yeah.
When I say like meeting always, this AFTA thing started years ago. And because of the COVID, there was a delay for a year. We started to take off the year before. Now, Ghana having the headquarters of AFTA, what are we doing about it? What opportunities, what advantages are we getting? That is what I mean.
Great. That's a good one. So, not to play the devil's advocate, because we were hoping that the GIZ, the German ambassador was still going to be with us to share some of the European Union perspective with us. We again agree that there have been a lot of misinformation, a lot of lack of information, as you have said. Very important. And we are hoping that other panel will address some of those. Because, for instance, last week, not last 2 weeks, the trade ministers for all the African countries, including the Botswana trade minister, was in town. And they had deliberations and negotiations on the rules of origin. The rules of origin, at the moment, they have, like I said earlier, they had negotiated 86%. It is only when they get to 90% that we can all begin to trade. We can all send goods to Nigeria under those rules, or send to Togo under those rules. At the moment, they are just 86%. Just last week when they met, they've risen to 88%. I'm not sure that a lot of people know this in this room, which is where I agree with you that they need to be telling us where are we, at what point, what is going on, and all of that. If people get to know, they will know what to do next. Hopefully, if they're able to negotiate the rest of the 2%. I mentioned Botswana because Botswana was one of the countries that disagreed with a rule on automotive industry, talking about cars and production and manufacture of cars. Botswana and South Africa didn't agree because one is a giant, one is a smaller one. So there was that conflict. Once they couldn't finish that, that lapse was there. So they couldn't reach the 90%. These are some of the information that, like you said, if it's available to everybody, we should be fine. Let me take the next, Michael. Mike, challenges that, from your perspective, entrepreneurs we need to be aware of how we can surmount to take advantage of the opportunities Afcfta present.
Right, thank you. First, I'd like to say that I think that the answer to your question, we all know. They've said a few things, and everyone in this room knows mostly what the real challenges are. The unnecessary bureaucracies.
Bureaucracy.
Yes. The things that we have to go through to register companies, like you mentioned, the different agencies and governmental organizations that you have to go through, and the corruption, all these things. I don't want to go through a long list because, like I said, I think that we all know exactly what the problems are. I'd like to shed more light rather on the solution, like you were mentioning, with these conferences, with these summits, with these forums. After we network, what happens?
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to be very candid with this, and not to be on the side of the government or on the side of anyone, but to say this. I want to liken countries to companies, for instance. In every organization, in every company, you have a CEO, you have a COO, you have a lot of people in the chain of command. You have people who are strategists, who think into what needs to be done, and you have people who are executioners.
Yes.
People who need to go out and do. In every country, or I think in every country that needs or wants to be successful, these executioners would be the private sector. So we're here today. You're here, I'm here. This gentleman from the United States gave a beautiful speech and spoke about what he's representing. He's representing athletes, he's representing real estate companies, and he's here to do business. After today, if I don't network with him properly and start to hit the ground running, nothing happens. This is not on the government. This is on us. We speak about government of the people, by the people, for the people. What does that mean exactly? This means that the government needs to be charged by everyone in this room.
Yeah.
I think that we forget time and time again, over and over, that the President of the Republic of Ghana today and every other president at one time was part of us here.
True.
We are the problem, each and every one of us. The president right now in the position of being the president of the republic, some time ago, 20 years, 10 years back, sat in conferences like this, spoke about the problems that we're speaking about today.
True.
And he's the president now. What happened? It is not him, it is not his government, it is everyone else in the country. We're not acting. We always want to give, and pardon me, right? Pardon me, but we always want to give the greatest speeches mankind has ever heard. It is time for us to put the full stop to the speeches, pick up the script, and start to act already. This is what we need to do. This is the solution. It is only one solution. But how does that happen? What makes us want to do this? Back to what I said earlier. And I cannot stress this enough. It's not me just wanting to reiterate something, but it is the only way. It is how much we desire this. We don't want this enough.
Yeah.
That's the truth. It's not a fact, it's the truth. It's not what you verify or what we use in a court and say the facts point to Michael being the one who did ABC. This is the truth. We're not verifying anything, but we know it in our hearts. We know that this is the problem. We know that we're not moving. We know that we do not want this enough. Because if we did, right after here, we would connect and we would start to act on the things that we're speaking about here. The issue of corruption is an issue of, I'd use an adage. It says, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. If we are not a part of the governance as a people, if we are not a part of the governance as citizens, it is just natural. And I think that most of the people, if not all of the people in this room, agree with me. It is just natural that if you're not being looked at or checked for what you're doing, you most likely might become corrupted. This is what power does. We have not been a part of the governance of our countries. We have left it to who we term as the leaders. But I don't see it that way. I don't see the government and the president. They are leaders in a form. But you need a strong and robust private sector being a a very key part of the governance. If we don't come up with the way forward and we start to act and go to the president and say, Mr. President, you came up with this policy of AFTA, and we think that A, B, C, D needs to be done. That's one man. The leader, all right, but that's one man. There are millions of people in the country. Now, this takes me right to this next thing. And I want to tell you a short story. In primary school, we treated a topic in social studies that was rights and responsibilities. And along the line, there was one session, one class that had some of us be very excited about the story. And there was this one guy who kept speaking about, yes, this is my right, I need to do this. And it was just a joke. He was joking around and speaking about a lot of rights. And I remember my teacher saying, you keep speaking about rights. Didn't you see that the topic was rights and responsibilities? Responsibilities go with rights. This is the problem here. What happened so many years ago? This is what's happening. We're not being responsible for what needs to happen. We're talking about foreign direct investment. And if I must be honest, if we want the responsibility of the development of this country and this continent to be the responsibility of the foreign world, then we must be ready to give up our rights as well. You do not expect one man to be responsible for the development of another or the progress of another man and yet retain the kind of rights that you think you need to enjoy. And this is what's happening today. We're not being responsible for our own progress. We're leaving this responsibility for the foreign world, and that's what's keeping us back.
Yeah.
We need to move forward. We need to start to act.
Good.
This is what I see as the solution, and that solution is born out of desire.
Good. Good. Thank you. So we need to have an all-inclusive problem-solving attitude. The issues that the other Michael raised about other agencies being lackadaisical and all of that, we all need to try and resolve it. But undoubtedly, the states also, and African countries and governments also have to begin to move towards, now that you're encouraging everybody to come and invest, move towards ensuring that your state institutions are also active and are working effectively. Ms. Lois, I'm going to come to you also on some of, in your area, some of the things that you think are impediments and we need to get out of the way in order to be able to take advantage of the opportunities.
So, I mean, my colleagues have well spoken, and from the government side, from the citizen side, you know, one thing about any kind of development, nation building, for us to take into consideration is the setup, the framework. For us to be able to measure accountability, for us to be able to participate as citizens, we need to also identify the framework which we are working within. And those are the institutions that we establish. Take, for instance, we all saw January 6th, what happened in the US with the insurrection at the Capitol. Institutions were tested. Yeah. And if those institutions are fragile, then it leads to bad things, and then it continues from there. So we really need to be mindful and be very clear and give a thought into the institutions that we have. That's the banking sector, the rules, the regulation, the framework that we've set, for instance, for the banking sectors. Are those rules and regulations that are openly, readily available, that if you want to set up a bank, the same rules will apply to you. If I want to set a bank, the same rules will apply to me. And I will have to I'll be audited, my licenses will be checked, all those things. Because the whole idea of rule of law is that the law will apply to us all equally. That doesn't mean that there are no exceptions in situations, because there are uncertainties in life. So there are exceptions. But we really need to build institutions where we can understand, where we can know. If I know, for instance, that when I ran a red light driving in the US, either there is a camera who is going to capture me, or if there is a police around going to pull me over, I'm going to get a ticket, and then I'll have to pay for the ticket or show up in court. I know that already. So when I get on the road, I'm thinking, is it really worth for me to run this red light and go through all this trouble? And it's clear for me to know. And so we need to be very clear. What is it that we're doing? Whether it's an agenda that is set, whether it's a development agenda, social agenda, we need to be clear, and we need to decentralize as a country. A lot of the things that my colleagues are talking about in terms of corruption, having to go to person A, person B, I mean, there are people in the United States that I've met that have never been to Washington, D.C. before, and they have no reason to go, because wherever they are, they can sit in their home state and do whatever they need to do, whether it's registration of business, interacting with the government without having to go there. But for instance, here in Ghana, a lot of things are in Accra. Yeah. So if you want to get anything done, then you're spending a whole day trying to travel here. Then there are lines, then it's 5 o'clock, so government business is closed. And then because you want to get it done, so you're looking for, oh, you work here, can you push this for me? If we can stop that, what is preventing us to put in different satellite offices in different regions and even different municipalities? Those are just practical steps that we can take to decentralize, and it doesn't take power from the central government. It's just practicality, and it works. So we need to discuss those things. We need to look at those practical ways for us to address the challenges and make the framework clear, loud, known, so that, I mean, a couple of years ago, there was conferences about African rising. That was almost the theme of every conference for a period of time. I'm not sure if Africa rose or is still rising. That's a whole different discussion. But one of the things that in the legal framework people talk about, whether it's multinationals, investors, is inconsistencies in laws or not having the knowledge of local laws. What is preventing any government on the continent to use the availability of technology to post, let's say, the Constitution, to post the banking laws, let's say, to post the mining laws in Ghana? People can go get some ideas, then maybe consult with a lawyer locally that, hey, I look at this things, so where do I fall? What do I need to do in order to be in compliance with these things? I don't need to try to find someone at the Ministry of Mining or Energy, and then they move me to another person, then I have to give you this, it's not necessary. And I think that if we really want to be considered as serious people who are developing, we need to let go of all those things. That's the past way of doing business. We have to be forward thinking, taking advantage of technology. We just had Mr. Joseph, who joined us from UNECA, whether he's on the continent or outside, he could join us here and speak with us. And we can take advantage of those things to do. Another thing that I will talk about is the education of the legal education. I think that last week I saw something on the news about the space that is available for lawyers and how it's very limited, so people couldn't get in. And yeah, there need to be restrictions. Not everybody can just get up and then become a lawyer. The training, the bar exams and all of those things, those are necessary precautions so that you know that people are competent to represent. But our legal education should be reformed to meet the realities of our challenges today. Right now, we are talking regional integration on the continent, and that is going to be something that we need to deal with for the next 20 years to really see the realization of the AFCTA. So, are we teaching regional integration at the law schools, international laws, cross-border transactional? We have the blue economy, maritime. There are very few maritime lawyers, at least known, on the continent. And we have the Atlantic Ocean, we have the Indian Ocean. We need those things. And so we need to transform our education so that our graduates will be able to meet the challenges of today. And just getting on Michael about responsibilities, I think also that we need to begin as citizens to understand that you need to take risk. Everything is risk. When you get up and you walk out of your house, there is a chance that you can be hit by a bus, but you get up anyway and you go out. So if it's something that you want to do, in spite of all the challenges, take a risk. If you heard from Keith's speech and you think, this is someone I want to connect with, approach him. The worst he can say is no. That does not diminish your person. That does not do anything to you. I am a female with a law firm. We're dealing with so many different people, and people say all kinds of things. I brush you off and I move on. So we really need to develop that tenacity so that we don't derive our personhood from validation from others. No, we need to be able to take bold risk actions. That is what changes. That is what really brings changes. It's not waiting to see, because if you wait on the sidelines, nothing happens. You're a spectator. You know, when you watch soccer, you clap and you're kicking your legs, but the ball doesn't go in. It doesn't do anything. You just fret and fret. At the end of the day, it's dependent on the 11 or 21 players on the field. So I will encourage all our youth. You don't need to wait till you are 60, 40 before you start your business. If you have the idea now, start. Whoever you need to talk to, go talk to the person. And for our leaders who are encouraging our younger ones to take up entrepreneurship, you also need to make yourself accessible so that all your ministry is accessible so that these people can access information. You don't tell them, go and be an entrepreneur, and then they cannot even get a business registered. We can't do those things. So we need to match our words with our actions, and then we can begin to see positive changes.
Thank you. Yeah.
If I can say something, excuse me, if I can.
Please
say,
go ahead.
Right. Just to add to what she has just said, I think, and what he also said, Michael here also said, with regards to value adding to services and to goods and things like that. Success generally has always been dependent on people. So this is to buttress what you're saying, actually. It's not to contradict it. Success has been dependent on people. Go around, ask at random Ghanaians and Africans, I'd speak mostly for Ghanaians, what the number one resource is that would help us get from where we are to where we want to be. Like you said, there were a lot of conferences when they said Africa rising. Whether it's arisen or still rising, we don't know. For us to get to that point where we say Africa has finally risen and is where it wants to be, ask people what that resource would be. A lot of people you would hear gold, cocoa, and the likes. We forget that we are the #1 resource. The answer to that question should always be us, not anyone else. We should be responsible for the success of Africa. But we forget about that and even go further to speak about, for instance, our governments like we're not a part of that government. Like our governments are of different people, but they are of us. And so what I'm basically saying is, if we can say that the government is responsible for our failures, then that means Ghanaians are responsible for our failures. Because the governments are Ghanaians. They're not foreigners. It is a collective effort. We all need to do something, and we need to do something now.
Good, thank you. I'm going to go to Dr. Atamensa from UNECA online, but just on the last note that Michael, you hinted on, making it a collective effort. You also remember that Ms. Lois talked about having a decentralized system, so that if I'm an entrepreneur, for instance, and I live somewhere around Kede, and I am able to, or I want to manufacture matches, for instance, I need assistance. The Ghana Enterprise Agency, that's the GEA, that offers support, should be decentralized enough so that I can approach it in Kede or anywhere in Eastern region. I don't have to struggle and come down here. Now I've seen quite a number of entrepreneurs and innovators who are living in Kumasi somewhere, and they have not even heard about GEA before. That's the Ghana Enterprise Agency. Yet this is an agency that's supposed to give monies out to entrepreneurs to be able to expand. How do we decentralize some of these state agencies that are intended to support, or even other, opportunities? How do we get them down there? That should be the effort of a system, and that system is a government. Decentralize your activities, then people down there can be able to take advantage of. A lot of things are happening in the districts, but nobody gets to hear of them. And it's not all of them who can come to Accra or go to Kumasi. How do we decentralize so that people can benefit? Let me go online and speak to,
Since
you want to talk to that?
Yes, I just want to address that.
No worries, briefly.
And I want to address that because it seems, I may be wrong, but it seems like my point is not being understood properly. This conversation needs to be had. The decentralization of government and agencies needs to be done ASAP. Absolutely. I agree to that in every way, 100%. My point is this, just as she also said, entrepreneurs need to go to, for instance, mentors.
Yeah.
They need to make a move and they need to make something happen.
Sure.
A lot of success stories from all over the world has come out of a lot of trials and hardship.
Yeah.
So if there is an entrepreneur in Kede, like you said, and the GEA is not present there, if that entrepreneur wants it as much as I say we need to want it, it's going to happen.
Good.
We need to make the government do what they need to do, but we cannot wait on the government to decentralize before we move. Things have to happen now. This is the point.
Perfect.
Right.
You want to talk to that? Good.
Yes, so I do agree with Michael, but I think that he talked about responsibility, and each party needs to take their responsibility serious. It doesn't take much to decentralize. Really, it's a necessity, especially for a developing nation that needs to move forward. So if we are going to hold citizens accountable, we need to also hold government accountable. So yes, if you're in Kede and you have started your business, I don't know the transportation fare to get to Accra, then place where you stay and other things like that. Those are all costs that yes, if you want it so bad, maybe you can borrow and then come. But is it really necessary? Do we need to make it that difficult for people to have to suffer? I mean, just because you suffered to get somewhere, the next generation should have it easier than you did. And so if we cannot make those things available, then we are failing.
Yeah. And I'm going to throw that to Dr. Atamensa Uneka. Doctor, I'm going to have to ask you, where do we get the line resolved where government says, we have tried, brought Afcfta to Africa? I'm talking about government in Africa. Government in Ghana says, we have even brought the secretariat to Ghana. That should mean something to people. That to them, they have fought hard. They are still negotiating. The last meeting they had, they spent up to 12 midnight. They think they have done the best to bring Afcfta to the doorstep of the people. The rest is for private sector to take control. And I wish any of the ministry folks were here. That's exactly what they would have told you. That it's now time for the private sector to take control of the Afcfta. Do you think that the role of government at this point can cease after they have brought the Afcfta to the private sector? They have brought the secretariat. Rules of origin assume that we have even 90% and we are trading. Has the role of government ended? And can the private sector move on? Isn't the private sector supposed to depend on government for something, or we can be on our own?
Look, moderator, thanks again for bringing me back. And directly to your question, no. The government has to still be there. The government has to create the enabling environment that would support the businesses to thrive. So my view is that, it's a partnership that should be ongoing. But I think we would like to see the private businesses take up their share of the burden, of the weight, and to work in hand with the government to get what is needed to create the development that we want. I mean, the government has to still be there. They have a point. They have to continue, because that's why we elect them, and they have to be there for the next for the term of office to ensure that we make progress. Look, I would like to say to the Michael number one, which is the director, the managing director of MEC, if I got it correctly. Let's be patient. I admire you, and when I talked earlier, I spoke with a great deal of affection and admiration for you for what you've been doing. But at the same time, in your last intervention, where you were trying to say the challenges, point out the challenges, you were able to overcome those challenges and you've moved on. Yes, I agree with you that we need to do more. But at times we also have to be careful the way we measure progress. We cannot at times, maybe now Michael number two and Ms. Williams, who lives in the States, would attest to this, that there are a number of Ghanaians who have left the country for a long time or left the continent for a long time. And the data set they operate is what they left with, but they don't know that progress has been made. So what I'm trying to say is that let us always try and look at it from the progress that has been made. Because I think if you compare to the past, there's a lot of progress that's been made. Is it enough? Of course.
Dr. Mensa.
Yes, sir.
Just a quick one.